Hey guys, it's Kevin in the Murray for you guys. It's going to be another installment of Own It or Falking Seen It, and of course this week, since the big movie coming out is the remake of Tomb Raider, I feel like it would only make sense for me to watch the original film, that of course being Lara Croft Tomb Raider. And what Lara Croft Tomb Raider is essentially about is we center on Lara Croft, of course, who is the aforementioned Tomb Raider, and basically she ends up stumbling across some certain artifacts from her past that her father held on to, and she starts to realize that these artifacts might have fallen into the wrong hands, the Illuminati perhaps, and she has the other half of it, and she needs to do what she can to try to retrieve these artifacts from falling into their hands, and that's really all I'm gonna say. So Lara Croft Tomb Raider in general, I really did not know what I was getting myself into here. I'm well aware that, you know, a lot of people say this movie's bad, then there's that side of people that say this movie's just so bad that it's good. I was just hoping for a really dumb movie. And I know I've said it before, that I'm not someone who supports the whole idea of just, oh, turn your brain off and, you know, try to mask the flaws of something. That, in my opinion, is one of the most shallow ways to look at a film of this nature. But there are definitely those rare occasions where I will stumble across the film and I'm able to have a good time with it, recognizing the flaws, you know, being able to distinguish that it's not really that great, but that I did have a good time with it. And I'm happy to say that Lara Croft Tomb Raider is exactly that kind of movie. This is objectively a terrible movie. It's horribly constructed. It has some very one-note characters. It has a very incoherent storyline that makes almost no sense whatsoever. But goddamn, I had a great time with it. I really did. And we're gonna get into why, starting off with the cast. And let me just say right off the bat, that is actually one of the best things about this movie. Not everyone. Most of the acting here really isn't that great. But I think the one constant that pretty much everyone does share is that of Angelina Jolie as Lara Croft, who, let me just say, is this a career-defining performance from her? No, it's not like this is like, you know, an amazing performance or anything like that, but I do think she was well casted here. I do think Jolie overall does do a good job, and in many places where this movie isn't really working, she's one of those things you can go back to and say, oh no, that actually is working, because it just seemed like she was having fun, you know, it never really seemed like she was going through the motions or bored. It just seemed like she was into the role for the most part, and you know, considering how dumb this movie really is, that is something that I definitely am happy about. I'm glad that she was very dedicated. I'm glad that she really did put a lot into this movie, and I think overall she did a really good job here. You know, Lara Croft is not really a very dynamic, multi-layered character, but Jolie does add a few layers to her. She makes her just a lot of fun. You love seeing her kick ass, but at the same time, you do want Lara Croft to obtain these artifacts, and I think Jolie overall did a really good job, and I was definitely impressed by her in this movie. Everyone else, though, no. Everyone else here, honestly, is pretty bad. I think, you know, Jon Voight, he does a good job as Lara's father, but he very much is just the expositional mouthpiece. That's really all he is in this movie. She's just kind of, you know, thinking back to things that he said to her and finding things out about these artifacts, and that's really the only purpose he serves here. You know, that's really all there is to him, and for what he has, he does do a decent job. I will definitely say that. Glen is hilariously bad as this villain. I thought that he was so over the top, so crazy, but again, just so fun to watch that you just can't help but enjoy what you're seeing, and I thought he definitely was, you know, again, just really dumb here, but overall I was enjoying him. Let's talk about Daniel Craig in this movie, because, yeah, believe it or not, Daniel Craig was in this film. I know that's very weird to think about, because most people think Daniel Craig's first movie was, I don't remember what it's called, but it was like from the UK, and it inspired, you know, it inspired, you know, Casino Royale and things like that. That's the main reason he was chosen for that. Before that, he did things like Tomb Raider, and this is easily, like, his worst performance yet. He's terrible in this movie, and it's one of the most baffling roles I've seen because he's playing this character in this film named, his name, of course, is Alex West. And here's the thing, Alex West is actually American. Now, this wouldn't be that weird if the rest of the cast, the characters, weren't predominantly British, which they are. Of course, the actors that are portraying them, most of them aren't. Most of them are, in fact, American. Craig, however, is British. For some reason, though, despite the fact that he is British, he is the only one in this cast with an American accent. I don't know how that happened. I don't know, who made that decision, but it's one of the most hilariously, just wrong decisions I've seen in a while. And, again, Craig is pretty bad in the film. I really did not think he was good in here, but I thought overall the cast here, they do what they need to do. They know this isn't like an amazing movie or anything like that. And I thought overall they just played their part, pretty well, even though some of them were pretty bad. And that's really all I have to say when it comes to that. Now let's get to what I think everyone really wants me to talk, which is the directing and the writing and all that stuff. Let's first talk about Simon West here as a director. Is this movie directed well? Not really. It's very scattered, it's very all over the place, but I feel like West knew that this was a dumb movie, and he didn't really try to make it anything more than that, because that's really what this is. It's just a really dumb movie. It's not trying to be, like I said, this Oscar-winning or, like, groundbreaking franchise. It knows it's dumb, and I think the tone works because of that. This is just a very fun tone. I think it works for this movie, and if the movie didn't have that tone, then yes, I would be a little bit annoyed, or maybe even more annoyed, and I wouldn't be as, I think, forgiving as I am when it comes to this movie. So I do think the directing was well done. Let's get to the writing, because here, look, again, this is a dumb movie. I'm aware of that. I know I keep saying that it's dumb, but I don't care. But for me, just because this is a dumb movie does not mean that I am excusing the flaws and ignoring the fact that this movie as a whole doesn't really make a lot of sense, because it really doesn't. Right off the bat, Lara Croft, there really isn't too much to her in this movie. She's already this Tomb Raider, she's kind of mourning the death of her father, she's in this position, and that's really all there is to her. There's not really much more to her as a character. The rest of the characters, there's not really much more to them. They're very one-note, especially the villain. He's extremely one-note. There really isn't much to him either. And the main sort of quest doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, she has one half of this item, and then he has, like, her father's clock, and for some reason there's, like, a connection to the Illuminati. It doesn't really make a ton of sense at all, but again, it's one of those things where if you just kind of just watch it and you're just entertained, I feel like that's not going to bother a lot of people. Now, some people, this might be the thing that, like, makes or breaks a movie for them. And a lot of times for me, it does. I do think characterization is very important. But for a movie like this, I don't really care about the story. I really don't. I don't really care about the story. It's there. It's a thing. That's not what matters to me. What you guys want me to talk about is the cinematography, which, yes, it's pretty bad. It really is. I mean, keep in mind, this movie was made in the late 2000s, and this movie just screams early 90s. Almost everything when it comes to the cinematography screams that, whether it comes to the ridiculous video game-esque visuals or the just overabundance of slow-mo in this movie, where there is, like, so much slow-mo, honestly. I have not seen this much in a while, probably because I haven't seen a lot of the, like, the late 90s action films that people consider really cheesy, but this has all of that. It has really dumb visuals, and some of it is absolutely hilarious. I mean, there's one scene where she's in this tomb and she starts fighting, like, all these rock monsters, and it's ridiculous and dumb, but it also is very entertaining, and I couldn't help but get, not invested, but just very entertained and enjoyed what was going on. And, you know, I think that's something that this movie does do pretty well. It does do a good job of entertaining you, even when there just isn't really much to the story. It's never really boring. I was never really bored by this movie. I don't really think that it had really a boring sequence in there, because the action scenes are so dumb and are so ridiculous that you just can't help but kind of go with it. And that's really what it was. I found myself just kind of just going with it, and I think that kind of did work when it came to the action overall. There's a lot of guys like swinging on wires and all these random action scenes that take place, and again, it's ridiculous, and some of it does feel like it's right out of a, you know, early 90s type video game. Scenes of her running through the forest, you know, any scene with her that's in the tomb, any action scene in general, it doesn't feel like, you know, very Hollywood type action scenes. It feels very cheap. It feels like they didn't really have the budget. And again, I'm not really that upset, because I wasn't expecting a lot to begin with, and I think it was just kind of fun to watch, really. That's the best way to sum the cinematography. It's dumb, but it's not unwatchable. It really is. That's the best way to describe it. It's not unwatchable. I thought it was fun, and I enjoyed that overall. The score of this movie, again, it's so over the top. There's so much, like, just a very poppy type score. Again, the score just screams early 90s as well. You know, it's ridiculous, honestly. I really can't say too much about the score. And the editing, as much as I did think this movie was a lot of fun, there were maybe a few scenes that did drag here and there. They make a lot of attempts with Daniel Craig's character at comedy, and almost all of them really do fall flat, particularly one scene involving him and this one woman really didn't work out at all. Other than that, though, I really can't say too much more about this movie. This is just a really dumb movie. That's the best way to describe it. It's a dumb movie. You might watch it once. I could see myself honestly watching this again at some point, but it's not something that you review, you know, regularly as another movie. Again, there are things to definitely pick at here. If you want to use this movie to dissect video game movies and why they don't work, by all means, this is the perfect film to do that with. I mean, it's got the incoherent plot. It's got the one-note characters. It's got the video game-esque action, but again, it's so entertaining. I don't really know how to describe it. I really don't. And I know this isn't that great of a review. I'm well aware of that, but there just isn't really a lot to say, because it's just a really dumb movie. That really is all I have to say about it, and it's ridiculous. It really is, and you can either go with it or not, and that's really the best way to describe it. It's a movie that you're either going to find really stupid but fun, or you're just going to find it really stupid. That's the best way to describe it overall. And because of that, guys, I am going to give Lara Croft Tomb Raider a C. But overall, guys, in my review of Lara Croft Tomb Raider, let me know what you guys thought overall, left your thoughts in it. Once again, guys, will not be doing the thing where I tell you guys, you know, where I randomly pick the movie, because once again, next week, the big movie coming out is Pacific Rim Uprising, so I will be reviewing the original Pacific Rim. I actually have never seen that movie, believe it or not. I remember when it came out, I actually have a story about that I will share with you guys next week, but that definitely should be a lot of fun. Very much looking forward to seeing the new Tomb Raider, if it is better than this movie, which it's definitely going to be. It definitely, I mean, no matter what happens, it's going to be better than this movie, because especially in terms of technology and the acting, we definitely have improved since this film has come out. That is for sure. But that's in my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.